could hear it east, north, south, and west. People calling for the best.
Granger, we want you as president.
Hello Guyana and welcome to the Public Interest. I am Malika Ramsey. Thank you very much for joining us. Thank you for joining us on this final edition of the Public Interest before we go to the May 11, 2015 general and regional election polls. Of course, this program is being recorded 4 days before the regional and general elections. With me is leader of the People's National Congress Reform and APNU AFC presidential candidate, Brigadier the Honorable David Granger. Welcome, sir.
Thank you very much, Malika.
All right, it's great to have you, sir. And this program, this broadcast comes at an opportune time when we are, like I said, preparing to go to the polls and we're preparing to elect a new government. Brigadier, why are you at this point confident that you will be the next president of Guyana, of course, come May 12, 2015?
Well, there's several reasons. First of all, and most positively, is the fact that there is tremendous desire on the part of the wider population to see change. I have been able over the last 3 months or so to cover dozens of villages. We've had rallies, and I'm convinced that the majority of people in the hinterland, on the coastline, want to see change. And I look forward to their support, and I do believe that support will be decisive in the elections. The second reason is that the PPP has hurt itself by its own incompetence and by the corruption that has been reported. And people are fed up with that. People know that the infrastructure in many of their communities is inadequate. They know about the scandals at the level of the cabinet and in the ministries of the government. They know of the denial of democracy by the prevention of the holding of local government elections, the president's refusal to assent to certain bills. So I would say the PPP has hurt itself. And I would say the third reason is that APNU and AFC is a combination of 6 parties. And together we've been able to promise the electorate, the population as a whole, a good life. We've been able to promise to fix things which are broken. We've been able to promise them that state funds will be directed and diverted to their interests rather than in the interests of a small clique, or rather than in the pursuit of projects which are likely to fail. So I think those 3 reasons give me confidence that we will win the elections.
Sir, despite those reasons, very important reasons and very true reasons indeed, there still at this time, even in these last moments, as I'd like to call them, there may still be a part of the population, a very small part of the population likely, that are still undecided whether they should vote APNU AFC or whether they should just not vote.
Well, there will always be undecided voters up to the last minute. Some people will not even make up their minds until they enter that polling booth and make the X. I would say that they will be persuaded by the need to change the circumstances under which they live. If they look around and see the towns and villages and they see the garbage, they see the pothole roads, they will want to vote for a government which is committed to holding local government elections. If they're public servants who are badly paid, they will want to vote for a government which supports better pay for public servants. If there are parents who send their children to school and they feel that their children are likely to drop out or not to do well, they will vote for a party which is going to improve the children's expectations or chances of doing well at school. So in the final analysis, I think even undecided voters, even if they're selfish, will want to vote in a way that improves their quality of life and the quality of life of their children. So in the final analysis, I'm confident that the majority of undecided voters will decide for APNU and AFC.
But what would you say specifically to them right now? Vote APNU AFC. How would you convince them?
I'll convince them by saying, look, we give you the good life. We are going to give you a better education system. We're going to give you greater possibility, greater opportunity for education. We're going to ensure that the economy becomes more robust, not just for a few, but for all. And we'll improve the quality of public services, health, transportation, and so on. So I expect that they will be convinced by our commitments to improve their quality of life.
Let's talk about the promotion of some of your policies. Of course, with the release of the manifesto, we heard a lot more of what APNU, AFC will be doing for Guyana. In these final few days leading up to the May 11, 2015 polls, which one of your policies, or I should say if you can give a group of policies that you would want to push or send home so that the population can understand that these are some of the things that we'll be getting almost immediately?
Well, almost immediately, you'll get an improvement in the crime situation, because we are convinced that there are sufficient good policemen, and once they get the resources, once they're properly paid, and they're well commanded, well officered, I think there'll be a swift turnaround in the security situation in this country. I think more gradually there'll be an improvement in education. We need to ensure that the schools are properly staffed with teachers, they have enough furniture, and that children get assistance to get to school on time. And we have to look at the job situation too. And that may take a little longer still, but we hope to embark on a scheme so that people could be retrained to enable them to get top quality jobs in accordance with their level of education, of course. Okay. But those are some of the things they can look forward to in the short term.
Sir, in the last decade or so, we have seen, and we've discussed this before, we have seen sort of a decay of morals and decency in the PPPC administration. How can David Granger convince the population that this is not what you will get with an APNU, AFC coalition government?
Well, they just have to look at my background, my life, and compare it with the vulgarians we find in high offices nowadays. I don't think they can point their finger at any senior member of APNU or APNU-FC to accuse that person of the sort of vulgarity that we've seen from the former Minister of Health, or the present Minister of Legal Affairs. So they can rest assured that under David Granger administration, ministers' behavior would be more orderly, more lawful, more, if you want to call it, polite. But right now, I'm sure people are quite worried by what they've seen from the PPP.
If I can talk about political maturity, both the APNU, and of course I'm going to deal with the APNU because in the past 3 years that has been the major opposition party in the parliament. Both the Partnership for National Unity and the People's Progressive Party Civic would have been accused by some sections of the population of not exercising political maturity, especially when it comes to the operations of the National Assembly. What, in terms of political maturity, what can we expect now from what would be a new government?
Well, as you know, government is divided into three branches. Normally in Guyana, we speak of government as the executive branch, but there are really three branches: the legislative branch, which more or less is parliament; the executive branch, which is the PPP administration; and the judicial branch, which of course is the judiciary. What the public can expect is that we will observe the separation of powers between those three branches. The legislative branch makes the laws. The executive branch enforces or implements the laws, and the judicial branch interprets the laws. When you have the executive branch trying to dominate the legislative branch, you get problems. And this is the situation we have in Guyana now. For 10 months, there's been no parliament because of the recess, then the prorogation, then the dissolution. I would say that the public can look forward to a more orderly government, more transparency, and that is our promise, that we're going to behave in a legal and orderly manner. There's going to be no prorogation, and that the will of the majority of people as expressed in the representatives in the National Assembly will prevail.
Is there a need at this time for APNU, AFC to, for want of a better word, to pull Indian voters?
Well, I think that the role of ethnicity in Guyanese politics has diminished. It is true, of course, we know that for a fact that many persons of Indian origin supported the PPP, many of African origin supported the PNC and APNU, but there has been a change. I've been campaigning in 10 regions now, and many indigenous people support the Alliance for Change and the Partnership for National Unity, the coalition APNU and AFC. And many Indian persons have come across to support the coalition. I think in today's newspaper you saw testimonies or endorsements from Mr. Robert Badal, Chetty Jr., Joey Jagan, Alvin Kalicharan, and other people. So I think people are gradually overcoming this ethnic loyalty and putting their vote for persons and parties who can support change and give them that quality of life. It is no point putting an Indian, if you're Indian, when he or she is incapable of changing your life. For an African, there's no point putting an African when his or her life doesn't improve. Everybody wants better life, and that is what I believe will be the final yardstick. Can this person guarantee me the good life?
Sir, I know we talked about undecided voters earlier, but it's just, if I can just come back to it for a bit. You have always, from 2011 to now, you have always warned about the great number of persons in Region 4 who did not vote in the November 2011 regional and general elections. Are there any specific measures being put in place at this time to ensure that those same persons who did not vote come out and vote now?
Well, to start with, we don't know if it's the same persons. But traditionally, we've had a large number of people who simply don't pick up the ID cards or don't show up to vote. We don't know the reasons. We don't know if they migrated or if they hinterland or they died. But it has been a problem. I do believe this time there is more emotion, there's more passion. And we feel that on their own, more people will turn out. And APNU and AFC together are actually mobilizing people to come to vote by committing to transportation, informing them of the place where they have to vote, and other information they need to have. So I believe the turnout is going to be better. Last election, I think it was slightly under 72%. And this time, we are confident that if we got about 82 or 85%, we will have the winning edge. But we have to, you're right, we have to cut down the number of persons who, did not vote for one reason or the other.
In previous weeks, you would have expressed concerns about the seemingly inflation of the list, of our list of electors. At this point, do you have any concerns or any worrying situation about that?
Well, I'm still concerned. I do believe that the list was inflated. We have not claimed that it was fraudulently inflated, but it was highly improbable that for a country of which the population was falling, and it did fall, that the voters list should be rising. So on the face of it, it seemed to be highly improbable. But when you examine the amount of persons who died, people who were living in the diaspora but wanted to maintain their registration, it is quite probable that our initial fears that the list was fraudulently inflated might not be so. But it is still inflated, and there are still some spurious names which have to be removed.
Sir, to come back to a topic, something that you would have talked about, of course, on previous programs. Again, you have been accused by the current government of wanting to militarize Guyana. Some people may even ask the question, what does the government mean when they say militarize Guyana? I'd like you to talk about this for a while and convince people that that is not David Grange's intention.
Well, I think people misuse the word militarization. I don't know if there's any militarized state. It means that the role of the military in terms of armed forces, the use of uniforms, the use of military techniques is widespread throughout the government and throughout various branches of society. This, of course, doesn't happen in Guyana. In Guyana, during the last parliament, there were only 2 former military officers, not serving military officers, former military officers, that is Lieutenant Colonel Harmon and myself. And the persons or the agencies which were responsible for employing a large number of military officers was the government itself. This happened at the level of the cabinet when they actually employed a former officer who had been cashiered from the army. That is, he was dismissed with ignominy, as it's called. And right now there's several former officers working in the Guyana government. And the opposition could never afford to employ former military officers. So the concept itself is wrong because it referred to former officers. And when I understand the word militarization, I understand it to mean these are serving military officers who are actually introducing or implementing military measures in order to perform tasks in society at large, in the government and society. That is certainly not happening in Guyana. There's no militarized state in the Caribbean, and certainly not Guyana.
All right. Sir, of course, this program, viewers, as you would know, this broadcast is not designed to go specifics to as it relates to APNU, AFC's policies in terms of what came out in the manifesto. But, sir, I'd like you to focus on 2 issues, our senior citizens and the youth. Now, to start with the senior citizens, there have been some complaints that senior citizens would like to hear more from David Granger in regards to what he will do for our senior citizens in terms of old age pension and safety and all of that. Would you like to spend some time talking about that?
Well, yes. Senior citizens are a reflection of the culture of any community. And you can always judge the character of a community by the way it treats its senior citizens. I'm not talking about death, but seniority, death, age, these are concepts which are honored in any society. And because we all have to go old, we all have to die. So there are always rituals. I myself try, as far as humanly possible, to visit persons who reach that magic age of 100 years. I did that year before, a week before the last, on the East Coast, Demerara. But the thing about senior citizens is that as they get older, they are less able to seek gainful employment, and they're more liable to have to buy medication or seek more expensive medical treatment. Mm-hmm. So as your earnings are reduced, your expenses are likely to be increased. And it is inevitable. Older people tend to be less healthy than young people. So any society like ours has to commit itself to ensuring that senior citizens can live comfortably. And from the time we entered the National Assembly in 2012, we have done everything humanly possible, that is APNU and AFC, to raise the actual levels of old age pensions. That has been done. And we will continue to attempt to give the older folk the level of pensions which can make them comfortable and which can allow them to buy the medication. We are also looking at a regime of measures which can help older people to live comfortably. For example, reducing the cost of medication, providing subsidized transport for them to move about. Even the supermarkets would give them rebates or reduce the amount they pay for commodities. So there's a variety of measures. But certainly on the part of the government, we are definitely going to increase old age pensions.
So they also stand to benefit from a revaluation of the value-added tax?
Oh yes, definitely.
Okay, all right. And youth, what is your immediate plan to open up opportunities for youth, whether it be jobs, education, arts? What are your immediate plans?
The key to the problems facing youth is good education. And we feel that if we can create institutions that allow young people to come back into the employment market, we would have taken the first step to solving the problems of youth. But to do that, more young people have to qualify, have to go to school. This is at the level of primary school. And they have to remain in secondary school so they can qualify at the Caribbean examinations. Anybody who drops out before that will find it difficult to get a job. So our thrust will be to keep young people in school so that they can qualify. Once they do that, we are more confident that they'll be able to get satisfactory employment.
Okay, sir, as we prepare to put a wrap on this broadcast, the final broadcast of the public interest before the general and regional elections, based on your continued policy of national unity, how would you encourage persons finally to vote APNU AFC based on David Granger's national unity and good life policies?
Well, I am very convinced that young people in particular, looking to the future, understand the message that we've been delivering. I'm convinced too that the public as a whole has a better understanding now that the six parties have come together. When they look back at the 23 years of the People's Progressive Party, they can see that their prospects as young people have been damaged. The access to sport, the opportunities for employment, the tendency to migrate, even the tendency to commit suicide, although it's a negative tendency. I do believe that young people are looking for better. They're looking for better, and that better will come from APNU and AFC. On the other hand, they're aware that the PPP has done very little. And one of the criticisms offered by Alvin Khalid-Chiran is that the present administration has done little for sport. And this is the complaint throughout the country, in all of the 10 regions. There has not been development of sport. The school system too has failed young people. The government actually ignored celebrations for young people. In the past, we used to have something called Youth Week, in which youth were celebrated with a variety of activities, but that has ceased. The government, I would say, the PPP administration, is preoccupied with its own self-interest, occupied with enriching itself and a small group of people, and does not have a general concern for young people or the population as a whole. And that perception, I think, has become more widespread now than ever before.
Okay, thank you very much, sir. Viewers, this has been another edition of The Public Interest. With me was leader of the People's National Congress Reform, and of course, presidential candidate for a Partnership for National Unity, Alliance for Change, as we prepare to head to the May 11, 2015 general and regional elections. And hopefully the next time we meet for The Public Interest, I will be introducing him not as a leader of the opposition or leader of the PNCR. So providing that you vote, and I'd like to take this opportunity to urge all to go out and vote, go out early, vote, help us to monitor our polling stations, and of course help us to monitor the polls. The idea is for free and fair elections. Of course, you know this is a policy of David Granger and a Partnership for National Unity, Alliance for Change. Until next time, take care of yourselves and be good Guyanese citizens. Goodbye.
You can hear it east, north, south, and west. People calling for the best.
Granger, we want you